become who we want to be as individuals. And at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, just congratulating me, let me know it's time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Monrock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
So you can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media. Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. My name is Jon. I'm joined by my co-host Mark. Today is the NFC South preview episode, and it is also the last week in which we are talking about hypothetical past season football. Next week, whenever we release Tuesday, Wednesday, we will officially be previewing the Lions at former Super Bowl champion KC, Arrowhead Stadium, kicking off the regular season. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to go. We got a good episode today. Jon just went in the other room, killed his cat, so it won't meow during the episode. He's got his Saints gear on. I got a ring light going so that I don't look like I'm dying.
Mark's color was so bad last episode that as I was doing the background removing for the thumbnail, it couldn't figure out Mark's face from his background contrast.
This is true.
It was just all this vague tan color, and so
this is true.
I was like, all right, Mark. And, it's great because Mark takes action when I need him to take action. And by that,
he calls me on bullshit. And
I'm like, Mark, stop being a cheapskate. And then I send him an Amazon link and he gets it taken care of. So I appreciate
2 for 2 on that. Microphone, ring light.
Yep. Second monitor we're still working on.
Jon does what, for the most part, I asked him to kill his cat and he did. So
yeah, exactly. Because
we do what we do.
God forbid we have any noise disturbances during this podcast. So I had to do it, right? And
had to do it.
Nice. Rest in peace, but had to do it. Also, if you hear her meowing somehow, that's just actually her ghost. So today was also the deadline for teams finalizing their 53-man roster. And what a roller coaster that is. Because, there's two things that suck about this, right? One is that there's a lot of guys that are incredibly talented that are right on the bubble that unfortunately get cut. And two, there's a lot of guys that general managers and head coaches want on their roster. And for whatever reason, be it, cap reasons or depth or whatever, it just doesn't make sense to keep them there. And it's a very hard day for a lot of people. Dreams are crushed, tough decisions are made. And it's crazy. A lot of movement happens with, free agents and stuff like that in a very short amount of time. So,
yeah, I mean, you go from most teams at that point of camp have 80 to 90 guys still left on the roster, and you have to get down to 53 on the active roster. So obviously pretty incredible amount of people are no longer going to be on the active roster of that team. And all of a sudden they're getting waived or released, or they're getting put on practice squads, or all of a sudden they're scrambling to try to find a new team. It becomes like this whole new rush of a free agency market, just with less of, it's not the bigger names usually.
Right.
But one thing I want to, in regards to that, when you make these cuts, a lot of times there's these positions where, teams are deciding, do we keep 3 quarterbacks because we really like this young guy? We don't know who our second guy is going to be. We can put him on the practice squad. He'll give us good looks all week. What do we do at the receiver spot? Do we keep 7? Do we add an 8th? Do we go down to 6? Running back, all this stuff, right? But the New England Patriots had a very different conversation today. They decided
Mac Jones. That's all we need.
They decided that Mac Jones is their guy, and that even after Zappy time and Zappy hour last year, they're going to release him, and they're going to release Billy Cunningham, who had a pretty
phenomenal
preseason.
Yeah.
And they're just going to release both their backup guys. And now they have 1 quarterback on their active roster. Now, this is very, very rare. I can't recall actually the last time that a team had 1 quarterback on their roster by choice like this.
There's a lot of, and I kind of alluded to this though, there's a lot of gymnastics that go on to this. And it's 1, cap hit reasons. And 2, there's certain guys that are maybe injured, but they don't want to actually lose them. And so instead of putting them, on IR or cutting them or whatever, they'll keep them on. And then after that phase, they'll go and put them on an injury list, which is, speaking of weird roster decisions, that's what people are speculating the Detroit Lions are doing here. Main reason is because they have 7 edge rushers and 2 running backs. So again, another imbalance there. You should have a 3rd running back on your roster. You clearly don't need 7 guys to play a position where, there's only 2 out there on the field at any given moment usually. And so the expectation is, a couple guys might go on IR, then they'll re-sign Craig Reynolds or whoever they want at that 3rd running back position. They might go out and grab a guy off of waivers. So a lot of weird things going on. I can definitely say this is the first time I've ever seen 1 quarterback on a final roster, though.
Bizarre.
Both guys probably to the practice squad, I assume.
I don't really know. I doubt they're going to keep. You don't normally keep 2 quarterbacks on your practice squad.
Yeah.
You only have so many spots for your practice squad players as well. So,
but you also rarely keep 1 quarterback on your main roster. So I don't know what they're going to do about that.
Exactly. The math is here. Belichick is just, he does what he does, man. And normally it works. I'm starting to think the guy's kind of losing it and just, I don't know. They haven't had the success that they want to have. Since Brady left, there's been a lot of question marks in his decision-making and hiring and roster moves and draft decisions. And if they don't start winning, I know that he's had a great track record, but at some point it's win now. And what have you done for me lately? And
100%. And I mean, hey, 3 years of patience is a lot of time too. So it's not like, he's had, time to kind of get his bearings together after losing his franchise QB, and they just keep, coasting along that good defense, close to 500. That's really all you get out of them. So
most coaches get 1 year at best.
Right. And he's had 3. So, and yeah, just also a point of clarification for those that do not know, waiving is for people that have been in the league for less than 4 years. So essentially they would be on a rookie contract or something like, akin to that if they were not waived. What that means is they go on waivers and people can then pick them up off of the waiver wire, add them to their team, right? Not quite as much freedom because, again, they're technically like a rookie contract type situation. Players that are released, on the other hand, have been in the league for longer than 4 years, and they just become free agents. So where they decide to go after that's totally up to them. So if you're seeing that terminology thrown around, a bunch between this episode or just what you're seeing on Twitter, that's the distinction between the two. So 90 to 53, and then the crazy part is 16 practice squad, right? And so I'm curious if teams are going to start doing roster cuts in a way where you just instantly put guys on the practice squad. This is how it's always been. They expanded the practice squad with COVID, though, and I do feel like most of the guys that do get cut from teams just end up on that team's practice squad respectively. I don't know if it, reduces friction at all there, but I don't know. It's like the person in me that wants to see everybody's dreams come true. I'm like, make the practice squad bigger, make sure everybody, because 16 for a lot of guys, that honestly isn't a lot of depth. I feel like it should be like 20, 25 guys in the practice squad. What's your opinion on that, Mark?
I agree. And, it's a very, very competitive league. And again, these guys are not only playing for their pride and their, their dreams and all that. This is their livelihood.
Right.
This is their job full time. So I would think to advise to expand the practice squad a little bit, have a few more guys at each spot, a little more depth. Your practices will be better. You're able to develop younger players usually more efficiently if you do it that way. And some of those guys can maybe sit on the practice squad and work their way up. But I'll tell you what, man, being a practice squad player is a pretty damn good living. And we've had a few players on this show that are practice squad guys. And it's not a bad living. It's not a bad, you're still living the dream.
You instantly get signed to league minimum, right? Isn't that how that works?
I think there's a practice squad. If there's a non-active roster league minimum, and gotcha. I'm pretty sure it flirts around, I want to say 400.
I think you're correct in that.
Plus, you gotta remember there's bonuses, there's signing bonuses, there's playoff bonuses.
Yeah,
again,
their
you get
weekly
moved up for
salary-
one.
Their weekly salary is $12,000 as a minimum. So how many weeks is the NFL season in total from now until
18? There's 18 regular season.
Yeah, so I mean, you make an easy $200K in less than half a year. Not too bad.
Again, that's bare minimum, right? Like that's assuming
Yeah.
your team doesn't make playoffs. That's assuming you don't have any incentives. That's assuming you don't have any signing bonuses, no endorsements, no whatever.
Could be worse.
It could be worse. So, and after all, we're not called the Practice Squad Pod for no reason. We proudly represent the guys that are right there.
Yeah, and like I said, like we're proud to shine light on those stories where we get the opportunity to. And that being said, if you did recently just get signed to a Practice Squad Pod on any NFL team, feel free to hit us up. We'd be happy to have you on the show.
Also, the name rhymes, so
yeah,
that's part of it too.
Kind of goes nuts, right? Anyways, what do we got next? Jonathan Taylor, because we haven't talked about him enough in the past month.
I'm sick of talking about him. Can we keep it short and sweet? And just
short and sweet. Evil Uncle Jim decided he didn't want to trade him away, and so he was put on the PUP list, which means that Jonathan Taylor, no matter what, is not going to play the first 4 weeks of NFL football. He is not going anywhere. Might get traded after the fact, might get cut after the fact, might be forced to play after the fact. We don't know. What we know for sure right now is that he is still a Colt, and that will remain that for the next 4 weeks, and he will not see the field for those 4 weeks. So,
yeah, I'm sick of this whole drama between Jimbo and Jonathan Taylor.
Sounds like the Dolphins had a pretty decent deal on the table too, so I don't know what the hell is going on there.
Yeah, the Dolphins they're hungry in free agency, man. They're making moves. They are totally in the win now or forever hold your peace phase with Tua and all their, just signing Jalen Ramsey and all these guys that they went after. But Jonathan Taylor, if you drafted him in fantasy leagues, I'm sorry. There's a lot of guys that thought they got a steal because he fell. So I always draft late. Always draft as late as you can.
I have so I have one draft tomorrow, which I'm not happy about, honestly. And then my other 2 drafts, I ended up joining 3 leagues. Sorry about it. My other 2 drafts are the next week, Wednesday. So the day before the season.
You want to do it. I drafted way too soon. We went over my fantasy team, 2 episodes ago?
I think it was just last episode. But it was a few days prior to the episode.
Way too soon. I mean, someone got Josh Jacobs in like the 4th round. I mean, that's just a steal because now he's going to play. Right. So it's just, always wait so that it's a fair, true draft, closest to the accurate rosters and where guys are going to be. For example, Trey Lance. Maybe you're going to steal. Maybe Dak throws one too many interceptions. Maybe here's what I can't wait to see, right? Every time Dak throws a pick, people are just going to forget about Cooper Rush, and the camera's going to go to Trey. And it's like,
and Lance, by the way, no Cooper Rush disrespect in this household.
Yeah, like
what are we lighting it up last season?
Cooper Rush slander is out of control. The guy went 4-1 as a starter for them when Dak was out last year.
Totally held his own. You could make the argument he played better than Dak.
Completely the reason why they were a playoff team. He held their own. I mean, without him doing that, they lose even 1 or 2 more of those games, and they're flirting with not being a playoff team.
Right.
But the Trey Lance drama is, and this is ironic. Some people, I know I say some people, RG3 was calling this like one of the biggest quarterback bust draft picks in history. When quite ironically, he was also picked, I believe, 2nd overall.
For traded first round
and traded for the same very similar deal. Now I know he had injury issues, but so is Trey.
He was a stud, to start his career, and then that first ACL, and he was pretty much done. For Trey, we'll see what happens. I mean, we can definitely say from the 49ers perspective that was one of the worst draft day trades of all time. I wouldn't say the worst. There are significantly worse ones out there. I actually think Brandon Perna, That's Good Sports, is a pretty good video on that if you want to go check it out. But yeah, and
this was a bad one. And
they traded a 5th round, 6th round pick to the Cowboys did, like something super low like that.
Yeah, it's pretty rare, man, for a franchise like the 49ers and a coach like Shanahan and a GM like Lynch to miss this badly. They've done so well.
Actually, Their first round draft pick history is pretty bad.
With Shanahan and Lynch?
Yep. Here, I found. Yep, here we go. I saw this the other day.
Okay, Reuben Foster was that's put an asterisk next to that because he's been in trouble. He was going to be a star player for them. The few games he did play.
Solomon Thomas bust. McGlinchey's been pretty solid. Bosa, obviously one of the best Ds. Ayuk's been really good, and then Kinlaw and Lance. So like 50-50, right? Like half of the guys on this list actually did not, turn out super great. And as Barry's tweet says there, despite that, they have a absolutely loaded roster and are one of the best teams in the NFL.
I mean, can you imagine if they would have if they got the right quarterback in San Francisco?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, who's Trey Lance's draft class? I mean, we're talking Trevor Lawrence,
Justin Fields,
Trevor Lawrence, right?
Because I think it surprised everybody when they moved up. Everyone thought they were moving up for
Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
I wish I could just filter this by quarterback. Mac Jones, I remember that.
So everybody thought everyone thought they were moving up for Mac Jones or Fields.
Right. Which Mac Jones would have been a pretty good fit in San Francisco, honestly, because he is very, and I guess this is an insult nowadays, but I don't think of it as that. Like, he's a very system QB kind of guy, right? Like, so
look at Sam Darnold, man. I'm telling you. Sam Darnold turning heads.
Mark keeps the eyes on Sam Darnold at all times.
You heard it from here first on the Practice Squad pod that there's a strong chance that he's the starting quarterback at San Francisco this season.
Let's go. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all of the big news-worthy things to talk about here. Obviously, like I said, heating up into next week, things are going to get real freaking exciting. So we have our last division to talk about. It's amazing how we timed this out, right? We did 4 divisions. Little fantasy football break, 4 more divisions. We'll probably talk a little bit more fantasy next week. Maybe we'll live stream some mock drafts if Mark has the time or can manage his calendar a little better than a few weeks back.
Pretty
but
busy
regardless,
this time of year, John.
Yeah, neither here nor there. At the end of the day, I'm really excited about this division. Fun story about this hat actually is the company that I work for. We had like an acquisition happen, and we're getting introduced to all the people on the other side of the acquisition. And little did I know that other company was based out of Atlanta. And so I'm wearing this hat just cause, and I enter this Google Meet, and the very first thing I hear is, "What the hell are you doing with that Saints hat on?" First time I'm meeting all these guys.
Did you say who day?
And that's who dat actually. Who day is
Cincinnati.
Yep.
That's kind of too similar, don't you think? Who had that first? Because one of them stole the other.
I think it was the Saints were first. It was who dat say they can beat them Saints was what that came from.
Are you sure? Because Cincinnati's been around a long time.
I'll Google it.
I'm because whoever the other team who came second with that stole that. It's too similar for me. One of these teams is a poser. And I think it might be you.
1 year apart. Who day was first, technically speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. 81 versus the Saints in 82. So
the Saints are freaking posers, man.
Who dat?
Yeah. So anyways, interesting division for sure. And
lots of change.
there's a lot of new faces. There's a lot of young faces.
Look at these records. Ugh.
Gross. But also very competitive division within itself. You got some old faces that are in new places, and you got some young faces that are in new places. And, obviously it starts with the quarterback play with Baker Mayfield as a Buck, Bryce Young as a Panther, Derek Carr / Jameis Winston. In the New Orleans situation, obviously Derek Carr will start, but Jameis is still throwing his name around in the league. And then obviously Ritter
or Heineke.
Atlanta. Or Heineke. I like Heineke a lot. I've loved Heineke when he was with Washington.
Same. Thought he was really good for them. One of the better backup quarterbacks.
He thrived in a situation that was not quarterback friendly. No. And obviously he was fun to watch and on a team that did more than they ever should every time he was on the field. So this is an interesting division for sure. We have some film to break down on each of these teams.
And we will say so we're going to do something a little bit different for this episode and actually have a good long discussion about their draft class and their free agency classes as well. Reason being is, every week that we've done this, there's kind of been that odd team out that had so much changeover, be it coaching, be it, personnel, that it was really hard to kind of do much prior year film analysis on them.
Yeah.
Instead of one team, that being the case, it's kind of 4 teams with this division. A lot of changeover, a lot of new faces. Mark just said it. You're pretty much getting 4 new starting quarterbacks, and you're getting coaching changeover. And
it's not often that you see that where it's four new starting quarterbacks in a division.
A lot of new faces, and so we're going to kind of speculate just kind of based off of these draft classes and free agency classes. So we'll get right into it. I think I really like, honestly, all 4 of these teams' drafts, and obviously we'll see how these pan out respectively. But, starting with the Bucks, I mean, Kalijah Kancey, right? You're getting a stud interior pass rusher, which is never fun to deal with. We'll see how he pans out. He's obviously undersized from Pitt, naturally getting these comparisons to Aaron Donald. I don't think those comparisons are warranted no matter who you are and how similar the attributes are, because that's Aaron Donald we're talking about. Beefed up on their O-line a little bit, draft a ton of linebackers, and then, just some depth pieces or other guys that they're trying to test out. So I'm a big fan of their draft just because I thought it addressed a few weaknesses. They really needed help on the O-line, and they really need to start beefing up their D-line again as well. And lots of linebackers, which, Tampa likes their linebackers and linebackers that can cover, but I digress.
I think these teams didn't draft great. And, when we did our draft ratings, I was pretty honest. I mean, I thought Atlanta probably had the best draft of the 4, getting Bijan and Clark Phillips are 2 names that stood out to me. Getting Phillips as late as he did, unfortunately, he had an injury in preseason, so we won't see him for a while. But Bijan is supposed to be a star, and we'll get into Atlanta and why he might shine there with an offensive line and with a running scheme that's really going to benefit him.
Yeah, and Bergeron's a pretty solid piece to grab.
Yeah, I did love what Carolina did, going and getting that number 1 pick, because again, people forget very quickly over the course of draft history. You just remember who drafted number 1 overall. You don't necessarily remember why. Right? They were not the worst team in the league last year. They did not earn the number 1 pick. They traded for the number 1 pick, which they gave
King's
up.
Ransom.
They gave up a lot, but they got Bryce Young, and I think he was, time will tell, but I think he was clearly the number 1 quarterback in this draft.
I really liked Zavala, and I think Jonathan Mingo is a good grab too. So it's a small draft class, but it's mighty.
It's small draft class, not bad. Getting Bryce Young's obviously the highlight. And then the Saints had a couple steals with Kendre Miller as late as they got him, and A.T. Perry was a guy John and I were both high on going into the draft. They got him.
Liked him a lot. And then
Jake Haener at quarterback, by the way, John, I think he's one of those guys in this draft class with a lot of college playing experience. And he is one of those guys that you let him develop behind Jameis and Derek Carr, and he'll be ready to go if his time ever comes in New Orleans, because I think he's got the it factor at quarterback.
And I think them also turning their attention in other areas, right, towards defensive line, offensive line for Saldiveri. But I mean, it's Cam Jordan's still playing really, really well, but he is in his 30s at this point, his mid 30s. I don't know how many seasons he's going to have left. I'm very excited about the fact that we are kind of shifting our focus and maybe getting some of those defensive line pieces going into this season. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I kind of disagree with you, Mark. I think all 4 of these teams did a pretty decent job drafting. And it's weird because, as we kind of said, like all 4 of these teams pretty much finished, right at 500. So I'm curious to see what tips the scales in their favor. Moving on to some of the free agency acquisitions too. Bucks pick up Mayfield and Chase Edmonds. Saints pick up Derek Carr, Jamal Williams. And then Falcons and Panthers had a little bit bigger of draft classes. We got, Chark, Thielen, Hayden Hurst, Miles Sanders. Again, they're acquiring, kind of specialists to, I think, make Bryce Young's situation a little bit easier. We'll talk about the one thing they didn't address, which might come back to bite them. And then for the Falcons, they got Heineke, Jesse Bates, Johnny Smith, and Calais Campbell, which I think are all pretty good grabs as well.
I think all these teams did well in free agency. But John, we got to get to the bottom of you saying Falcons. I think it's Falcons. And if you're going to be a Saints fan, you can at least get Atlanta's team right. I would hate you too if I got into that work call and you said, "What? Well, you guys are Falcons fans?" I would look at you like, "Dude, you are such a Saint. You're such a New Orleans who dat poser."
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the Midwestern nasally ass voice that I have. And there's a lot of parts
I'm Midwestern
about my tone of voice that I don't like, first of all. Second of all, so thanks for hurting my feelings a little bit.
I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. You have a beautiful singing voice, but
appreciate it.
It's just
second
simple.
of all, honestly, I think what you're saying makes me want to lean into it a little bit harder. Where
you're going to continue to say it.
We're going to keep.
I can't be
guys.
the only one thinking it.
100%.
If you're listening to this podcast,
100%, and
you have to. People have to be thinking it.
I actually kind of knew you were going to come after me when I heard it leave my mouth because I was like, I didn't. It was.
And
more
that was extra full.
A.
Yeah, that
Falcons.
was extra. I mean, normally it's like Falcons. It's kind of in between, but that was Falcons, like full blown.
It was full,
almost Canadian.
Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost Canadian.
I guess so. But with that, I think that also would really upset Falcons fans that I'm not pronouncing their team's name correct.
Yeah,
so,
you should almost do it just to spite them. And then when people tune in,
will.
hey, why does this guy keep saying Falcons? Be like, because they don't deserve to be called the proper name.
And then 28-3, just tag that at the end of it too.
Listen,
also, really quick,
you better be careful because the Falcons, I think they're coming this year.
They're going to be pretty good, and I will give them their flowers when we get to them. I actually think they're the first team that we cover here. But I do also want to mention the Saints home opener against the Tennessee Titans. I will be in attendance for. I will be way up in the nosebleeds, but I'm so excited. Yeah, hey, it's a 6-hour drive from Austin, so we are like, you know what? Let's go there Saturday. Go see some jazz music. Go grab a hand grenade. Which is the staple drink in New Orleans. It's phenomenal. It's like this giant frozen thing with like
I've never been to New Orleans. One bucket list item.
It's a good time. Hey, just get yourself a quick weekend flight and join us for the festivities. And then the next day we're gonna go watch the Saints play the Titans. I'm going with my buddy JP, who's been on the show, is a Titans fan, so it should be a good time. I'm excited for that. And we'll definitely make sure to document it and take pictures.
Yeah, get some practice squad pod content.
Yes, sir. But yeah, so the one thing I want to mention just before we get into the film is the Panthers is so weird because it's like I feel like they have the most average offense in the NFL. I have no other way. I feel like they have a bunch of guys that are just okay, and it's kind of
slow. They're slow on the perimeter.
They're slow.
And hey, listen, slow perimeter skill guys with a bad offensive line is a dangerous combination for a young quarterback because you're not going to get a lot of separation from these guys, and you don't have a ton of time.
Yeah, it's tough, and also not to mention that their division rivals have pretty good defensive backfields as well, and pretty good pass rushes for the most part. So we'll see what happens there. Hopping into Atlanta. Obviously, the highlight tail is Bijan.
But I showed this first clip because everybody talks about his pass catching and his jukes and his physical strength and his jump cut. This is him pass proing against, I don't know, do you recognize who that is? Will Anderson. So, the number, 3 overall pick in the draft. One of the best college football players for 2 years straight. And Bijan, with no fear, with no hesitation, solo blocks Will Anderson here and allows for a huge play in that opening game against Alabama, in which Texas hung around with Alabama in this game. Obviously, Quinn Ewers got hurt and it went downhill from there, but Alabama still went. I think they won on the last drive. So this was a really close game. Bijan shined against really good competition defensively. It doesn't get much better than Will Anderson at the college level. So I wanted to show that because there's much more to him. He truly is a complete back. This is more what you've probably heard about Bijan Robinson, plays like this. Obviously, this is one of the best runs
Plays incredible.
You'll see, period. But, he did this kind of stuff often at Texas, and it just kind of got swept under the rug a lot of the time because Texas was never truly relevant while he was there. They were never what Texas is supposed to be. And the spitting image of what we saw Saquon do at Penn State in college and what we saw him do at Texas, the comparison's fair. I really think the comparison's fair. And
I think his floor is, I was going to say, I think his floor is a Saquon type player who can block, who can run, who can catch, can do basically everything. But I'm pretty confident that Bijan's going to actually be better. Not that Saquon's been bad, but he's had injury issues. There's been some inconsistency. I think Bijan is going to be consistent. Mark and I were laughing. You don't have to be super worried, knock on wood, about injury issues with Bijan because we basically saw the dude's spine fold in half like it was a freaking taco or something, and he was totally
got
okay.
right up. Yeah, like he's had the worst hit you can ever see ever during a game,
Scary.
And he wasn't
So
even
scary.
injured. Now, question for you, John, about Bijan while we're on the topic. Fantasy football wise, when we did our rankings and stuff and rookie watch lists, he was not a name we talked about a lot. In my league, he went in the top. I think he went 8th. In a lot of leagues, he's going higher than that. What are your thoughts on him being that high in fantasy football?
So I've gone back and forth. I think taking a rookie in the first round, no matter who they are or what position they play, is a gamble. And you just have to say it what it is. You have no NFL reps for this particular player. I think you're taking a chance in order to pick him. Now, with that being said, I think this is a great segue into the next tweet that I was going to show. The Falcons offensive line was pretty underrated last year. If you kind of look at their PFF grades, I mean, got 17 out of 141, 8, 15, 1, and 4. Pretty dang good. And then the other thing that I wanted to show in reference to this is their depth chart. And I just, receiver matters, right? Like Jake London's got a pretty, he's pretty big. Darrell Patterson's obviously pretty big. Like Atlanta likes big guys on their offense, but just take a look at tight end real quick. 6'6", 6'6", 6'2", 6'3", 6'3". Huge. Big guys on their team. And so what I think the Falcons game plan is to essentially be like, hey, we don't know what our pass game is going to look like. That's to be determined. One thing we're going to do, and we're going to really rely on, is running the shit out of the ball and blocking the shit out of you. And no matter what, our offense will be at least competitive in every single game because that's a bitch to deal with. Yeah. And because of that, I think Bijan's workload is just going to go up and up and up, especially
that's what I think everyone's thinking. I think they're realizing now, most people don't realize how good that offensive line was last year and that they're returning most of their O-line.
Because offensively, they were horrible.
They were bad
in general.
But they had Mariota at quarterback. And they lost a lot of close games. And they did have a lot of running success last year. And you add a guy like Bijan Robinson to that running mix. And obviously, like you said, John, with the fact that they have Ritter at quarterback and some questionable targets on the outside, big guys, but not any that have really proven what they can do, they're going to lean on the run game. So they're going to lean on getting him the ball. And if you get the ball, you get chances to make shit happen. And I think in fantasy football, all you can ask for, as we said in the fantasy football advice episode, value targets over the yards and the touchdowns that you're seeing. And targets. And he's going to get a lot of targets and a lot of carries.
The other thing too, right, is like, people called Kyle Pitts a bust for them. And if you're a fantasy football player, you might think that Pitts was horrible in fantasy. If you look at him as exclusively a blocking tight end, you're pretty much getting a mobile offensive lineman that you can put anywhere on the field, and he's going to block the shit out of the guy. He's pretty good as a blocking tight end. So just something to consider. I would avoid Pitts for fantasy, but I don't think he was a bust because I think he's actually doing the role that Atlanta needs him to do, which is not so much catching the football, but being there in the blocking game. So I think that's it. Yeah, that's it that we have for Atlanta. And now I'm going to segue. So the Saints, and as a Saints fan, I can attest to how brutal this was. First of all, I thought Jameis Winston was a better quarterback than Andy Dalton. And I continued to be vindicated in that opinion all of last season. Because situations like this, I watched all freaking year. Saints defense doing their job. I think they still, yet again, ranked like top 5 in defense. And I had to watch Andy Dalton do shit like this against bad teams. This is against the Cardinals here. This freaking pick, maybe one of the most legendary pick six like clips of all time, of just his look of disappointment after throwing. I remember this, a horrible throw. This was actually on my birthday, if I remember correctly. And whoever in the background diving in for that pick six touchdown.
That episode we did after this game was the best. It was fresh off of John's birthday. It was after this game. He was so sad. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, because I went into this game thinking, oh, it's a lock that the Saints are going to win this. It has to be. Nope. Also, here's another fun fact about this one. If I'm remembering correctly, this is the only Cardinals win at home the entire season. The Cardinals were something like 1-7, 1-8 at home last season, and this was the only win that they got. So a lot of pain. As Jameis Winston says, pain. Just pain everywhere. Now,
it's bad. It's bad. It's dark times when you're turning to your hero, your Batman, as Jameis.
That's not anymore. Not any longer. We have a guy.
He is still a Saint, though, so never.
I'm fine with that.
Never say never.
Hey, I stand behind Jameis as our backup quarterback.
Hey, is that Michael Thomas on the field too? By the way.
Yep. In fact, he's been a favorite target of Derek Carr's in the preseason drives that they've done.
Would you look at that?
His ankle hasn't shattered into a trillion pieces yet, so that's fun. This touchdown's pretty good, but really, I just want to run the clip to say, hey, we got a guy that's not going to throw pick sixes anymore, or at least not at the rate that Andy Dalton was, because I think he had like 3 or 4 last season. It was horrible. Again, really, really, really bad. Carr looked great in the preseason, and I think he was the piece that the Saints offense are missing. They have an average to above average offensive line. They have great running backs. They have a great tight end, and they have pretty good wide receivers. I'm not thinking the Saints offense is going to be anything stellar this season, but I'm pretty confident they're going to get the job done and let the defense continue to put in the work that they're doing. I have questions about Dennis Allen as an offensive coach, but I really think he's handled a lot of those responsibilities to the OC that's been there for like 6 years now. And Dennis Allen was previously the DC, so same scheme over there year over year over year. So
let me ask you something, John.
Yep.
And I hate having to be the negative side, but you're such a Saints fan that I have to play.
No, you got to call me out on the bias for sure.
Jimmy Graham's back as a Saint.
Yeah.
He had a big catch in their preseason game this week. The dude was arrested like 4 days prior. Is there any disciplinary action going on in New Orleans, or is it just free for all willy-nilly because he's a Saints legend, he gets away with it? Like, what's going on here? He spent a night in jail. I think it was public intoxication, I think, was the reason, but he was just wandering around the streets, and like I think he violently attacked a cop after they.
So was this? So I'm really confused, and this is because I've heard a few different versions of this. Was that the same night that he had the seizure?
I don't know. I didn't know he had a seizure.
Yeah. So he actually had a very serious like medical incident that happened.
Okay, so now the second question is, they're letting guys play 4 days after having a seizure?
I guess so. Well,
in a preseason game?
Seizures are not like, they're serious, but they're not, like some people have conditions where they have seizures every day kind of thing. Not good, but yeah, you can recover
but wouldn't
from them
you
very
maybe
quickly.
Not play him in a preseason game that's high
maybe not, but
contact?
you have to remember that Jimmy Graham is the third string tight end, which I'm stoked about because he'll be a fun red zone target. But Jawan Johnson is the start.
The course of playing.
Okay. So I was expecting devil's advocate of you like actually bringing up like a fault, and you're just bringing up our third string legendary.
I'm bringing up the fact that you have a third string. The fact that you look at this as positive is insane. The guy was arrested 4 nights ago. I'm worried about disciplinary action not being taken. And now I didn't know about the seizure, but now I'm worried about their medical staff and their coaches deciding, yeah, let's play this guy who he doesn't need any more preseason games. The guy's been in the league for 12 years.
I think it's more so the fact that he's not the starter while he's playing in preseason games. I don't know what to tell you, Mark. All I'm saying is that the actual starting tight end for the Saints, Juwan Johnson's gonna light it up this season. That's a good fantasy sleeper to actually keep your eyes on, because he was a pretty favorable target last year with shitty quarterbacks. So, anyways, last Saints clip that I want to show is Lattimore locking down Mike Evans for a few plays. That was definitely PI, though. I'll say that much.
There's PI a couple times on here. I love this battle, this matchup. It's one of the best in the league.
This rivalry is
They've
awesome.
actually gotten in fights on the field like 2 or 3 times.
Oh, more than that. It's almost every game. Every time they match up together, they fight.
It's an intense battle, and obviously the forgiveness has never occurred because it carries over to every time. And they play each other twice a year. So this is what you get, though, and when it comes to division rivalries, this has become one of the bigger ones. And I love watching it, man. I love these guys competing. Both are really, really high-level players at their respective positions. And both these teams have been atop the division, competing for that top dog spot, really the last 5 or 6 years, And
yeah, it's been an awesome rivalry. We'll see how it pans out this year. I mean, I'm personally more worried about Atlanta this year than I am about Tampa. But it's been fun to watch, and I mean, it was cool as a Saints fan that like 2 seasons in a row they shut out Brady in the regular season. So or swept, I should say, not shut out, but they did have a couple shutouts as well against them. So
didn't happen in the playoffs, though.
Didn't happen in the playoffs, though. But hey,
that's where it matters.
That sure is, Mark. Thanks for the reminder.
I have to be honest. I mean, you can't act like it. It doesn't matter if they lost in the playoffs.
Yeah. But I'm personally excited because there was a lot of quarterback turbulence. I really think that's the biggest takeaway is that, hey, man, if their defense just plays at the same level it's been for the past few years, their offense is going to be much improved with a more competent person at quarterback. I'm excited, and I believe they're the betting favorites as well. So excited about all of that. Now, shifting our attention to the Panthers. Bryce Young, the guy? Think he might be the guy.
They clearly think he's the guy. They gave up a lot for him. And I'm assuming one of the first plays that they showed everyone in the decision-making process of, should we trade for Bryce Young and get this number 1 pick, was this play. Because this is up there with the Herbert throws we've shown, the Mahomes throws, the Allen throws we've shown in film process on this podcast when we've went over those divisions. This is quite utterly just ridiculous. The anticipation of where this guy's going to be, the fact that he has a play action, he's rolling left, turns his body, and is able to torque his hips to get this ball there. And then, obviously, a great finish by the receiver. But this is ridiculous, man. He threw this guy open. Oftentimes in football, you'll hear that, and it's pretty rare to see it. But he threw this guy open. He was not open when he threw this ball.
Dan Orlovsky had a pretty interesting take on ESPN this morning where he pretty much said, you can identify a quarterback's trust with their receiver by how early they get the ball out versus where the receiver actually is in their route. And Young's going to have some chemistry to build with these receivers for sure. But the fact that he can anticipate that and place the ball in an area where only the receiver can catch it, it shows, I think, an NFL level cognitive ability, which is one of the main attributes that everybody talks about with drafting him, right? It's not his size, clearly. He's one of the smallest quarterbacks ever drafted in the first round, but he has great thinking skills. He's pretty dang mobile. He's not a bad scrambler, and he's obviously got a great arm looking at this pass. So,
God, it's impressive, man.
Now, one issue that might arise for him is that, again, they might have one of the most average skill position groups in the league, and then the area they didn't really address all that much, and you saw it in the preseason when the starters were out there, was, man, they were having trouble on the offensive line.
And that was against most of the Jets' backup defensive line in that first preseason game. It hasn't gotten much better. In fact, it's a genuine concern for Carolina. And listen, John, I will say this. You highlight how bad the offensive line play has been. I highlight how slow and the lack of separation from the skill position players. That is a very bad combination. If you're not getting easy, quick, oh my God, he's open right away plays where he can just catch and throw, and you can't protect. So now you're waiting for long developing pass concepts to help get guys open, but you don't have time to get the ball out to do that. It's a very bad combination.
Yeah,
So
they need to figure it out quickly because that
yeah,
was the main concern is that Bryce Young's going to be too small to take a shit ton of hits from these, 250, 300-pound defensive linemen on a regular basis. And the offensive line needs to figure it out. They drafted a tackle, last year, and he has not been developing the way that they wanted him to. I think, what is it, a Kwanye or something like that? So yeah, it's rough, and it's something that they need to look at fixing very quickly because they have a pretty good defense, pretty good pass rush, one of the better linebackers in the league. They need to get their offense figured out quickly, or else it's going to be rough. So something to beware of, Panthers fans. Hopping into Tampa. So Mark wanted me to highlight this statistic before we really got into it with them. Mike Evans currently owns the record to begin an NFL career with 9 1,000 receiving seasons
in a row.
And the only person that has him beat for that streak is Jerry Rice, who has 11 straight. One of the most consistently reliable wide receivers in the league. A guy that isn't super talked about a ton, except for, the years he got with Brady. But I mean, he's just had some crazy plays. Here's him, being the more physical, better player against Tampa there. They might have just lost that. My bad. But
everyone thinks he's
Orleans.
just like this is my problem with it. Everyone thinks he's just a jump ball, big body receiver that goes up and gets neutral balls and catches a couple deep balls every now and then. This guy is a crafty route runner. He's got strong hands. He's a great blocker. He's a very, very competitive dude. You see him obviously with these matchups with Lattimore. He's a really fun guy to watch, and he makes incredible plays very, very often. And he has been doing it, like I said, for a long time. I wanted to show this clip here. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there's some really good film clips in this episode. It's definitely worth checking out if you're listening to this to watch on YouTube. But what I want to point out here is that hesitation move, John, where he kind of freezes the DB, makes it look like he squares him up, makes it look like he's going to go outside. And you see the effect it has. You see the DB gets put on his heels because he thinks, oh, shit, he's going to come back outside, and he breaks inside here. And it's those little details in these routes that so many guys half his size lack. But he does it at 6'5", whatever he weighs, probably 230, probably weighs 225.
Yeah, he's huge.
He's a big dude. So his ability to run these routes as if he is, 6 foot, 185 pounds, that's special. And then you add to the fact that he can go get those 50-50 balls. Add to the fact that he's done it for 9 straight seasons. You said, right? 1,000 yards, 9 straight seasons, right from the get-go coming into the league. This guy's been doing it, and he's going to continue to do it.
And one of the less talked about second wide receivers in the league with Chris Godwin. He has been battling injuries the past couple of years, and that has definitely kind of changed his outlook from like potentially a fantasy perspective or, his consistency from like a numbers perspective. But man, when he's on the field, he's a great freaking player. There's him pretty much torching Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back when he was with the Saints. I mean, just great compliment to a lot of, I think, Mike Evans' skill sets where, he's quick, he's speedy, he's good underneath, all that stuff.
It's a good 1-2 punch to have it wide out. Obviously, the quarterback question comes into thought here with Baker Mayfield, and he's had some great moments in the NFL, and he's had some pretty damn ugly moments in the NFL. And there's a lot of, hate or love for this guy. He's a very, very polarizing player. A lot of that, I think, just comes from the way he carried himself at Oklahoma in college, and that kind of that I'm the man and I'm the underdog and I'm going to prove everybody wrong mentality. That's why everybody loved him in college and so few people hated him. But he brought that same mentality to the NFL, and the play didn't back up that attitude. And all of a sudden, he looks like a smart ass, cocky dude who's not backing it up on the field, and people hate that. But people so quickly forget that he had a Cleveland Browns organization. And this is what everyone hates on Baker Mayfield. They talk about, he's too small and he's been shitty and he turns the ball over and he's got injury problems. This guy turned the Cleveland Browns shitty situation at quarterback. I mean, they had 18 different starters in like 15 seasons or something crazy like that.
He spurred or helped to spur the
He
revival.
won a
in
playoff
Cleveland.
game in Cleveland. He won a
And
playoff
they
game in
kicked
Cleveland.
his ass out of town.
And he almost beat Mahomes and the Chiefs, barring a targeting call that was not called. And I mean, they would have won that game had that penalty if that penalty gets called. And obviously, everything happens, and it's a thing of the past. But people so quickly forget what he had going on in Cleveland, and how hard it was to win in Cleveland. And no one could do it for years. We're talking for 20 years. No one could get it done at quarterback. They drafted a lot of guys high in the draft, and no one could do it. And this guy comes in, and he was doing it. And then they said, "Hey, we're going to go get Deshaun Watson, and we're going to send you. We're basically going to send you off." And
yeah, I mean, the legend of Baker Mayfield in Cleveland definitely. It's a weird situation because I really thought he was going to be their franchise quarterback. And I mean, he's the first guy that I know wasn't giving the greatest QB play in the league, but he was giving them consistent QB play that was above average on that rookie contract. And then he battled injury for 1 year. And I think this is a great cautionary tale for any aspiring NFL players, is that he had a torn labrum and he chose to finish out the season with the Browns because he's a competitor. And I guess that's just, the competitor in him wanted to favor his NFL team more than his own health that season. And the thank you that he got was getting kicked to the curb and then bringing in Deshaun Watson. So super crazy situation. And it's a bummer for Baker, but I'm also happy that he's still in the league and getting opportunities. And I think he'll be, he'll probably just be a transitionary quarterback for Tampa this season. But I mean, hey man, he got starting opportunity and he's going to get another year to compete. And if, you're kind of a fringe NFL player, especially a quarterback, it's the best you can ask for. Right. So,
and hey, John, one side note too, it does it's about Baker Mayfield, but when anyone thinks that there's a meaningless game in the NFL regular season, like this game last year was a Thursday night game, the Raiders were irrelevant. I think we're on I don't even know, 5 or 6 game losing streak. The Rams were irrelevant. They weren't a playoff team, and everyone knew it at this point. Stafford was done for the year. Cooper Kupp was done for the year. This game got Baker Mayfield his chance in Tampa, and this was an exciting game. Came down to the end. He threw a game-winning touchdown pass. But there's never a game in the NFL where people shouldn't watch because these guys are playing for everything on every single snap. And most people, I would say, if not everybody, had written him off in this situation.
This game is also the reason why Will Anderson is probably not a Lion. So
and probably part of the reason why the Lions weren't a playoff team.
Yeah. So Baker Mayfield in the Rams era did a lot of bad things for the Lions, but did a lot of good things for his career. Because like you said, I think it was a resume builder to get that Tampa job. So to close things out, win totals, Saints under over 9.5. I personally thought they're going to be a 9-win team this season. I'm going to up that estimate to 10 so that I can say that I'm going over on the Saints.
You are such a poser, dude. You are a poser. They're not winning 10 games.
I think they can
win
win 10 games.
Come on this podcast.
They could beat up on their division. That's 6 right there. Just got to win 4 more.
They're not going to beat up on this division. This division is going to be similar to last year where they're going to beat up on each other.
I think they're going to go 5-1 in the division. Book it.
And who's their one loss? Atlanta? I'm going under for the Saints. Okay. I don't think you're far off. I think they win 8 or 9 games. But there's no way they're winning 10. I can't give them 10. I think they're more likely to win 7 or 8 than they are to win 10. So That's my opinion. I think this division is pretty even throughout. The one thing that gives the Saints the upper hand to win the division is the fact that they have the most proven quarterback. And obviously this is a quarterback's league. And Derek Carr, listen, Baker Mayfield has more playoff wins than Derek Carr. I believe that stat. But Derek Carr is a superior quarterback in this division. He's shown the most of any of these guys, and it's not really close. So that's why I think the Saints get the division. It's theirs to lose, in my opinion. Do you agree?
I definitely agree. And yeah, I mean, look, Derek Carr might not be the best quarterback in the NFL, but I also think that Derek Carr has been swimming upstream his entire career. You've heard me say this plenty of times in the past. The Raiders did him no favors as their franchise quarterback with the coaching turbulence, the management, horrible first round draft picks, maybe the worst drafting team in all of the NFL. And he still made that team competitive year over year over year. And then they thank him by kicking him to the curb and moving on. So I'm excited for him to get a fresh start with a very stable organization that has one of the better managers in the league, has had very little coaching changeover, and a consistently good defense. I think the combination of those three things are going to bring the best out of Derek Carr, and he will be a guy that they can definitely win with, even if they're not winning because of him, borrowing from Joseph Engros, our guest, and some of his quarterback takes. So that's where I'm at.
Hey, all I'm going to say about that is if he doesn't pan out for New Orleans and he doesn't look as good as you think he may look, you better not make these same he's swimming upstream excuses, because that's not the excuse anymore.
No, I won't, for sure. I would say that I was wrong about that take in hindsight, but I do think that Derek Carr is going to get 9 or 10 wins out of the season with the Saints, and I think that's enough to win this division. Panthers 7.5
Under.
I'm going to take under 2. I probably would have taken over if you asked me before the preseason started. After kind of seeing some of those glaring skill position and offensive line issues, I going under now. I think they're going to.
Can I say a dark joke?
Sure.
Why do you hesitate?
I'm just afraid.
The Panther situation, right?
Oh no.
The Panther situation, right? Battle line, no separation on the outside. It's kind of like having cancer and AIDS. It's not good, and it's going to kill you.
Yeah, that's a take. That's an analogy for sure. I
mean, that's listen. I thought of that on the spot. I give myself some credit
for sure. You have 2 terminal illnesses at once. I get it.
It's not good.
If one doesn't kill you, the other's going to.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thanks for explaining that to the people that are struggling to explain it.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking of
if you're struggling to explain that, you're an idiot. Sorry, listeners.
I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like I need to compensate for some of the shit that you say on this podcast.
What is that bad?
No, I think we've, as a society, become sensitive to anything that's like.
I mean,
sad,
listen,
whatever. We're not
it's
allowed
sad,
to say
but it's the Panthers have 2 terminally, diseases going on, and if you don't figure out one, chances are the other one's still going to get you. So
to continue the analogy, they do have really good doctors. Their coaching staff is very, very, very,
very
good.
quarterback friendly.
Very quarterback friendly and a lot of experience. You're talking a lot of guys that have been in the league for a long time, have had success in the league for a long time. I mean, former head coaches, a lot of that stuff, just all over the place.
And I will say that for what the skill guys lack in separation ability and speed, they're very experienced. Like Thielen's an experienced route runner.
You're going to get a lot of scheme.
He's a very smart player. Chark is a very long player. He's been around the league for a little while. He's been on different teams. He's learned different systems. Hurst has been with, a couple different quarterbacks. He's learned a lot. He's been in the league for a while. He's proven himself. So they have guys that definitely can help mentally with Bryce Young and make sure that the chemistry is good and the timing's right. But they better be on top of their game. Otherwise, that separation is going to be an issue for them.
Yeah. Falcons. Was that an A or an O?
Falcons for sure. If I spelled Falcons for you, like how would you spell Falcons?
F. It would just be an O instead of an A, probably.
I'm almost thinking you're saying a U. Like I think you're saying Fulcons.
Falcons. Sure. Okay. This is a tough line, honestly, but I'm gonna go under. I think 8 wins is where they end the season. But man, that run game. I mean, you can play a lot of good football with nothing but a deadly run game. So
Let me ask you this, John. Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder? Like, who do you think's a better quarterback? Who's more proven in this league?
I don't know. Neither looked great last season, obviously. And for that reason, I'm going to cop out and say Taylor Heineke. I think Ritter's
I like
the starter.
Heineke.
And I think he will get benched
Ridder
for
been
Heineke.
named the starter?
I don't know if he officially has
I
yet,
think they
actually.
have.
Let me see what Google has to say. Yes, he has been named the starter. So, but man, that means he's going to be the starter to start the season. If he underperforms, I mean,
we've seen this happen before, where Heineke rides the bench and he kind of waits for his moment. He comes in, steals the show, buys his O-lineman Jordans and all this shit. So
yeah, and you're telling me with a deadly running game that's not, Taylor Heineke's not going to be a pig in shit with that. I mean,
we're Heineke believers.
I'm a Heineke fan. I'll say it. And then Bucks. Wait, sorry, you didn't give your line for that. I don't know.
Oh yeah, where I was going with that was I'm going to take the under because they won what 3 or 4 games last year. What was the record last year?
No, they won 7 somehow.
Really?
Yeah. So,
shit. So my point was going to be whatever. They won 7 games with Mariota for the most part, and I think Ridder is a step back from Mariota. Now that's obviously assuming that Heineke doesn't step in and steal some wins from some teams. So I'm gonna go under.
And then we got the Bucks 6.5, and I'm probably gonna go under here. I think I don't know if they have anything figured out, frankly. I think that they're gonna have a different head coach next year. They'll probably have a different quarterback next year. They were struggling defensively towards the back half of last year too. Things were kind of falling apart. Offensive line isn't as good as it used to be. A lot of glaring issues that I don't know if they effectively fix this offseason. And I think this is one of those years that they're probably just trying to evaluate the talent they do have and kind of push reset on everything else. That's my guess. So
yeah, I agree with you. Listen, the Bucks had their glory. They had Tom
Got your
Brady.
ring.
They got the ring. I'm a fan of Baker Mayfield, and I hate seeing him get just slander. But there's a lot of pressure on that dude this year, man. And there's a lot of pressure on that franchise. There's a lot of pressure on that coach. I can't see him winning more than 6 games though. So I'm gonna go with the under.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. So everybody, that is not only the NFC South episode, but that concludes our weekly divisional previews.
John, have you seen, just quick side note, my brain does this sometimes. Have you seen the meme of the Cardinals coach when he got hired, when he meets, I forget what player he's meeting, I think Kyler, he's talking about the shots?
Yes, I do know. Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
Shots. He goes, shots. A lot of shots. We're going to be taking shots down the field. I saw that on Twitter the other day. Has nothing to do with this division, but I literally cringed. And then I thought back to your tweet saying that it's like plus, what is it, 1,500 odds for a team to win 0 games this year, and the Cardinals are favored in 0 of their games as it stands right now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. And that meme just came on my time. I almost went and bet it right away. I was like, this dude's not winning. This guy's not winning.
Look, it is incredibly hard to truly tank in the NFL. There's too many jobs that are related to
line,
it. Yeah, there's too many players that are just gonna play however hard they can play, no matter what the situation is. Obviously, no one is gonna say that out loud, because I think you can get in a lot of trouble for doing that. I think that the Cardinals are trying to make sure that Caleb Williams is their quarterback next year. That's what my guess is.
By the way, did you see him in the week 0 college football game?
Yeah.
He threw 4 touchdowns.
He is going to be the talk of the town this entire season. I mean, he is going to be a household name in college football for sure.
I think I just saw him in a Burger King commercial with Matt Leinart and him.
That's fun. So look,
he's made it.
And I think the Cardinals decided that's the guy that they want, and that they can probably get a decent amount of draft capital for Kyler. That's a pretty good combination.
Do you think that
they
our
have 2 draft
prediction-
picks next year too, based off of where the Texans land?
they're gonna get 2 top 5 picks probably, or
Yeah.
well,
top 10 for sure.
Texans, I think, actually will be better than most people think. But yeah, do you think, are we gonna see Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison
That would be
both
crazy.
Taken
That
in
would be
Arizona?
Nuts. That would be one hell of a way to restart your franchise.
You know what they would do? That coach would be like, pew, 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 pew. A lot of shots. God, it's so cringy, dude. I mean, I can't even ever see myself doing that. Like as a coach, like if I walked up to any of my players, I wish that they would just like honestly laugh in my face.
Yeah,
like that is.
I've seen some
There's been some
football coaches do some crazy cringy stuff because like there's a caricature around being a football coach, and some people just are their caricature version of themselves.
You better be a damn good coach if you're going to do something that corny. If you're going to do something that corny, you better be winning a lot of games. And let's just say he hasn't won any games as a head coach yet. So
he was the Eagles defensive coordinator too. And if we know a thing or two about how defensive coaches pan out in the NFL, it's pretty risky. I would say offensive coaches tend to fare a little bit better as head coaches. So we'll see how it all goes down. But yes, I would agree with you that I think the Cardinals are, for a lot of reasons, the most likely to not only go, lose, have the worst record in the NFL, but probably not win a single game. I'll give them the benefit.
I wouldn't say probably.
They're the most likely to by a larger margin than previous.
Only the Lions can go. Only the Lions and the Browns can really pull off the 0-16.
Well, they might be the first to go 0-17. I was about to say, and that's.
I mean, you can't go 0-17. You can't.
That's crazy. That would be nuts.
There's no way.
But I mean, a week before the season started, they cleared out their quarterback room.
They did.
And now they got Dobbs probably starting with a week to learn the playbook. This just turned into a Cardinals slander episode.
Kyler's going to take his Kyler's going to take his time to come back as well.
I would be excited for 2024 if I was a Cardinals fan. You're going to have a shit ton of draft capital and young talent for sure. There's that to look forward to. And just that. Nothing really to look forward to for this season. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate it. We will see you next week to preview week 1.
Next week is game
week 1 of the NFL season.
Week 1 picks. Week 1 predictions. What else? I mean, that's all you need to hear, really. Like, that's what you need to hear. I mean, we're in season mode.
We've been saying we're so back for like 4 weeks now. But next week, guys, that's the week. We're officially here. As of recording this, there's 9 days until NFL football. I
saw that on a billboard today. It said 9 days to Lions football, and I was
just felt all warm and tingly inside. You're like,
yeah,
we're finally there. So, and look, it's already back for Mark. High school team Highlanders had a really good win against St. Mary's. If you looked at the scoreboard, a lot of turnovers on both teams, but hey, a win's a win, and it was a pretty large margin win. So, congrats on that, Mark. College football is back this coming weekend too. So we're back, baby. I'm really excited about it. Thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And we will see you guys next week for week 1.
Peace. See you guys.